How many of you guys have ever heard of the millennium? And no, I'm not talking about the Millennium Falcon. Aha! I knew what you were thinking. Well, what? It's not a spaceship that flies around with a Chewbacca on it.
Roller coaster?
No, it's not Millennium Force either. It's not a roller coaster. Actually, it's going to be a pretty smooth period of time in history, to be honest. Probably the smoothest. Well, no, I can't say that because there's a rebellion at the end. So I can't say it's perfect. It's, in a sense, what God's going to do is he's going to reestablish what it was like in the Garden of Eden. That's basically what's going to happen. There's going to be people that will come through the tribulation. There's going to be us. There's going to be the martyrs. All the people that we read about in the book of Revelation and in the book of Daniel, all those people are going to be back here on earth. See, this happens. Remember last week we talked about when Christ comes back, he puts an end to evil. An angel, maybe Michael, not exactly, I'm not 100% positive, takes a large chain from heaven and he throws Satan in a bottomless pit and binds him there for 1,000 years. It's going to be awesome. We'll have 1,000 years of peace, 1,000 years of prosperity, 1,000 years without disease, without pestilence, 1,000 years with the lamb and the lion laying down together, where it says the serpent will just eat dust, that the lion will eat straw like an ox. All those things are going to happen in this millennial period. And as we kind of go through this chapter, I said it's a pretty short chapter. I mean, if you read it, I read over it this morning again just to refresh my memory, and I think it only took about 10-15 minutes, and I'm a really slow reader, so it's pretty short, so there's not a lot to cover. But what they talk about here as we open up, that the United Nations actually took a passage and put it on the building when they were formed in 1945 from Isaiah. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn the ways of war anymore. I find that intriguing. And I find that passage interesting. If you think through human history, all through from Cain and Abel forward to now, have men and women, because women aren't completely innocent in this, but for the most part, have men considered, thought about, and invented war. Different things that we can do in war. Different weapons that we could use that are more effective. I mean, a catapult was pretty impressive back in the Dark Ages, but it's really not all that impressive today because now we have artillery. Now we have drones. Now we have, now we have all this technology and all these ways that mankind has invented to kill ourselves. And that's exactly what mankind has done. We've invented strategies, invented weapons, invented viruses, invented, trained, learned, weaponized. Is there any nation on earth where the thought of defending itself or the thought that there is no military? Is there any nation on earth without a National Guard, a Coast Guard, a military, a police department of some sort? Is there one? Every nation has some sort. Even tribes in the deepest, darkest jungles of wherever all have some sort of security. And the UN came together to put all that to bed, put all that to rest. To make sure there was no more war, that none of these things would come about, that they would protect the world. And they even take that prophecy and they plastered it on the building. But has that been accomplished? No, we could say the 20th century was the bloodiest of all the centuries combined. And as we roll in through the 21st century, has it gotten any better? Actually, quite the opposite. And they asked that question, was the prophecy wrong? Well, no, the prophecy's not wrong. It's who is enforcing the prophecy. You see, when the UN done that, they assumed that they could fulfill that prophecy, that that would be their goal. That would be what they would work toward. But that's not going to happen until the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords comes back and rules. And I often find it interesting that when you read, as we read through this, about how Christ rules, did you read how he rules? Anybody catch it? With the iron scepter. There won't be a police force. There won't be all these things we see, all this security. It won't be necessary because Christ on earth for that 1,000 years has all authority. Judge, jury, and executioner all in one spot. Said Satan, as it goes into 1,000 years, he's in a pit, chained down, can't get out. Nothing's going to go on with him. They also go in and talk about, there's some different worldviews about it. Some are amillennialists, which means that they, what in the world was that silly definition? It was something Augustine that introduced, and it was allegorical-wise, that the millennium happened here on earth with us. And then there was post-millennialists, which was another kind of silliness where they said that the church would eventually evangelize everybody so much, and everybody would get to be so Christian that that's how the millennium would happen. But the Bible is very clear, and from the apostles through the 4th century and until this time, people believe that there is going to be a millennium. There is going to be a time when Christ will come and rule. You know he's going to come back. You know he's going to defeat all his enemies. We know Satan's going to get thrown into the bottomless pit, chained down there for a while, for 1,000 years. We know we're coming back with him because it says Christ comes with the armies of heaven. All this happens. And then for that period, we're going to have that period of time, that 1,000 years, where we will live in peace. We'll be here on earth. We don't know exactly what we will do, but it does indicate that we will rule and reign with him during this time frame. So what I'm thinking is, you got the world, you got us, you came back with him. I think we're going to be like governors, mayors, things like that over particular areas that we will have to keep an eye on. I think that the educational system will be biblically based, so those that were teachers will teach. Those, that had the gift of hospitality will probably be in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem will be the capital. And it talks about people coming and going from Jerusalem. So that indicates that we will go to Jerusalem for worship, and then we'll leave and come back. Because you can't go to Jerusalem if you wasn't there to begin with. So we'll be traveling around the planet. We'll be doing things. Exactly what those things are, I'm not sure. Maybe you'll be the mayor of Butler, governor of Indiana. Well, I don't know. Maybe there won't be in Indiana. Maybe you'll just be in Region 12. I have no idea how Christ is going to set up his governorship or his authority, but that's exactly what he's going to do. And we're going to rule and reign with him for that 1,000 years. And it talks about a prophecy in there that a child will die at 100 years old. That if someone is 100 years old, we're going to think of them as a child, that they're just a pup. People are going to have an extended lifetime. Biblically speaking, how old did Adam live? Anybody remember? 970 years. 970. And there's something about he gave 30 years to something, I'm not sure what. But if Adam lived that long, then we'll be able to live that long, because it'll be that perfect environment again. And by 100 years, everybody gets 100 years to either accept Christ or to not accept Christ. And then they die immediately. It's an interesting little prophecy. How that's going to work, I'm not sure. But everybody gets 100 years. You either accept Christ or you don't. And if you don't, you die. That's not for us. We've already accepted. That's for the earthlings, the inhabitants of earth, those that have not been saved, those that have not went through this earth, this time frame. It's for those. You see, because if you're living, if a person can live 100 years and be considered a child, that means that there's going to be a lot of babies getting born during that time frame. If a person is still childlike at 100 years old and they're living extremely long, you get married, you're going to have a lot of babies. There's going to be a huge population explosion on the earth, probably higher or larger than we've ever seen before. So the earth will get repopulated. And then as the millennium ends, Satan will get released and there'll be one more rebellion. And that's the one we'll talk about. It won't be next week, it'll be the week after. So things happen again. And our next series, our next sermon on heaven, which will be a week later, is heaven isn't boring. Right? Okay, if heaven isn't boring, and this is why heaven isn't boring. Think about it. We go to heaven for a party for 7 years. We come back to earth for 1,000. And then more stuff happens after that. You see, when we die, we're not sitting in heaven strumming some harp on a cloud wearing a little toga-looking thing. There are things that are going to be going on. We're going to be coming back to earth. We're going to be ruling and reigning with Christ. We're going to be judging the nations. All that sort of stuff goes on. It's incredible what happens. But we're not there yet. We still have some time to kill here on earth, so to speak. Anybody got any questions? I said this chapter was pretty short and right to the point. Mankind's tried to make utopia. Hasn't happened. Not going to happen until Christ comes back and rules. Do you have an inquisitive look?
I always have an inquisitive look.
Oh, okay.
No, you always wonder, when that millennium hits, you think about nowadays, you need money, you need this, you need that, and it's God's reign.
Yeah.
We might not need any of that stuff, and that might just be
Yeah, exactly. It might not. Yeah, we might not need to. Yeah, I mean, it just.
God provides.
Oh, here, I'll just.
What we need. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted a pear today. I think I'll go over here and get a pear. Because it talks about we'll have the tree of life.
Right.
And it's for healing of the nations and for restoration, and thinking maybe you just have a munch, a salad from the tree of life, and you're probably good to go for a while, because it's for the healing. I mean, if leaves heal the nations, imagine how much you get out of a salad of the I don't know, maybe we won't have to eat salad. Maybe we can have donuts and not gain any weight. That sounds good.
This is after the period where the earth has been torched, though, basically. So
Pretty much, yeah.
How do you have any conception how?
Because it does talk about how Peter says the earth's reserved for fire and the heavens and the earth melt away. How God fixes it, I don't know. But I know he cleanses it. And it's not going to be with water. It's going to be with fire this next time. The second time that God cleanses us. Because the first time he cleansed it with water, he said he wouldn't do that again. Then Peter talks about how the elements of the earth are reserved with fire. And it's kind of interesting. What's interesting about that is the way Peter talks about that is all elements, when you break them down into their very smallest nuclear, I can't think of what I'm looking for, molecules, and even smaller than that, and then their electrons and protons and stuff like that. It's exactly how we use a nuclear bomb. It's exploding of atoms. And every atom can explode. So if God says let there be fire and everything bursts into flames, because that's what's happening on the sun. It's like regeneration. It's like a nuclear process. So I don't know if he's going to just crack everything open and let the lava flow, or if he's just going to cause all the atoms to dissipate in one swoop. Exactly how he does it, I don't know, but he's gonna do that. He's gonna fix it. And all this was gonna turn, for that millennium, turn right back into like the garden, like it was in the Garden of Eden.
Maybe that's why we need Mars.
Maybe. Maybe.
You said something about 1,000 years, and then when it's over with, the devil's coming back,
Yeah.
then what?
Then he takes the stomping for eternity. Christ puts an end to him for all eternity then. The point of the millennium is to prove to mankind what God said in Jeremiah, that the heart is deceptively wicked. Who can know? So what God does is for 1,000 years, puts Satan away. And this, none of this is covered in the book. He puts Satan away. It's where mankind has no excuse whatsoever anymore. Christ is on earth. We're on earth. And there are earthlings here. We're ruling over them. They will have no doubt that God exists. But as you can tell from that prophecy that we read, that at 100 years old, people will have to make a decision. This time frame is to teach mankind that it's not the devil that made you do it. It's me that made me do it. And that's what this time frame is. It's, in a sense, the last proof or last judgment that God was right all along. That a problem with mankind is the heart of mankind. It's our sin. Because a lot of people will, I think, say, and still do say, you know, well, the devil made me do it. Well, no, the devil may have gave you the idea, but the devil didn't make you do it. He can't make you do anything. And that's what this time frame does. It puts that last argument to bed. Does that answer it for you all right? Okay. Any other questions? We still got like 20 minutes. All right then. If there's no more questions, we can be dismissed.